Welcome once again to the Trailer Trash Update. This is Hoot. I'm fixing to holler. Anyway, man, I should show you guys this stuff one of these days, because I got lots to go through. It's all a pattern. It's all a pattern. Absolutely a pattern. I mean, this pattern goes way back. I mean, the way I had mapped it out. Actually, going back to the East India Company, I mean, you know, they were the rich, they were the oligarchs. Because oligarch's gonna oligarch, you know. Yeah, they came over and they set up colonies. Now, granted, the Massachusetts stuff was religious based. They were too radical for Europe, so they came over here to get away from this shit and, yeah, do witch hunts and that. But that's besides the point. The East India Company, and then they set up plantations to raise sugar and spice and everything nice. And they enslaved the indigenous people, eventually ended up with the African slave trade from, across the Atlantic. Ships all loaded up with people. You know, that went in. Went on. People died down. The serfs were the serfs. Help, help, I'm being oppressed. Yeah, as it ever was. As it ever was, even back in those days. And on came the American Revolution. And introduced the idea that all men are created equal. However, it did not implement the idea. But it did go as far as to say that people who own land and were not enslaved, etc., had certain rights, and eventually it became that everybody had those rights in the Bill of Rights once the Constitution was established. But it still favored the oligarchy. The oligarchs were able to grab land, take it from the natives, exploit resources, build roads, etc. for the oligarchs. But, you know, the revolution came on. We had progress, the Western expansion. Steel, coal. Pittsburgh was founded, the foundries. Railroads were blossoming. We had the 1849 Gold Strike. Go West, young man. And along with that, from a lot of people were starting to realize that, hey, you know, slavery's not really a good idea. Maybe we should get rid of it. And then there was all the strife and all of that, and with the Dred Scott decision and that shit, and the cadre of bounty hunters were going around rounding up escaped slaves, etc. It had, you know, the Underground Railroad, all that shit was going on. Interestingly enough, that the states in rebellion seats in the Congress were held empty, I believe. There may have been one or two states that actually still sent representatives, even though they were in rebellion. I'm not quite sure of that. And I'm not sure if those seats were actually accepted and filled. But at the end of the Civil War, there's still a lot of hard feelings because, well, Lincoln had been shot, and his notions about Reconstruction and a post-war era was overrun by Johnson, his vice president, who came in and allowed the carpetbaggers to go. And along about that time, the KKK was formed. Yeah, who is it? That horse guy, the cavalry guy. And went around raising all that shit out west in Missouri and all of that. He came back and founded the Ku Klux Klan. And I can't read my writing, so yeah, we still had basically an agricultural economy, but the manufacturing of steel railroads, railroad engines, and many other things like armaments and etc. grew and grew. Cotton, which was during the Civil War, England had boycotted American cotton because of the slaves. So the cotton industry was coming back up, and the slaves basically became laborers, cheap-ass laborers, barely paid, barely able to make their way. Even the black farmer of today still can barely make his way, but he knows how to get away. He knows how to survive hard times because he's been discriminated against. He knows how to save his seed. But I digress. So all of that manufacturing activity and all that brought in the Gilded Age, and the Ku Klux Klan was more and more popular in the States. It was a legitimate organization like the Lions Club or the Rotary or whatever, basically. And we had the Gilded Age. They came in, and yeah, we're mechanically making very complex things. Automobiles, electrical things, lighting. All this starts, all this comes in, all this gets rolling in the industrial age into the Gilded Age, because oligarchs gonna oligarch, and yeah, they were using the company store. Oh, my soul to the company store. Yeah, all the songs and all that stuff. Yeah, the company store where they own the house. Think about it. You're a miner. You're a steel worker, a foundry worker, or a miner, or tend a coke oven or some shit like that. But your house is not your house. Your house is owned by the company. So you can have whoever you want to live with you, but that house, that's owned by the company. Oh, you need food? Well, there's a nice grocery store right here. We'll get you anything you need. There's a general store right there. Get you anything you need. Advance it on your paycheck. Yeah. And so they were able to enslave people via wages, and they discovered this. And it all came to a head basically in 29, although there were labor movements earlier than that, and blood was shed, Pinkertons in Homewood, etc. And yeah, I'm picking on southwestern Pennsylvania because that's what I know. I was raised in Appalachia outside of Pittsburgh. Yes, I say Appalachia. Y'all say Appalachia down south. Go for it. And World War II was in there, and the reason I mentioned World War II is that it was the death rattles of the royal families in Europe. You had Kaiser, you had what's his name, Fernando. Anyway, the guy that got shot in Sarajevo. All the treaties kicked in at the same time. Bingo, bango, bongo, you got a big fucking war. Lots of people get killed. But anyway, out of this war came several people and several things. One was a guy named Smedley Butler, who went on to write a book called War is a Racket, where he basically explains that he is a henchman for the U.S. government, enforcing the will of what, the United Fruit Company or something like that down in Central America. We'll get back to General Butler in a minute. In 29, Hoover had imposed tariffs, actually, in most taxes in the United States at the time were regressive taxes, sales tax or tariffs on goods that were imported. J.P. Morgan and a bunch of his buddies kind of freaked out and withdrew a lot of money from the stock market, creating a crash. That was in 1929, the big crash. Now, the Klan was still around, and over in Germany, in 29 through 32, something like that, was the rise of the Nazi Party. And actually, there was a Bundist whatever that they have in their names that was an actual Nazi party that was politically active here, wanted the U.S. to join in the Nazi movement. In 33, FDR was elected. The Nazi Party, what there was of it, was, was defeated. They never really came to power that I'm aware of, but I'm sure they had a little success there. But even FDR, I mean, there was a bunch of J.P. Morgan's buddies that got together and attempted to recruit Smedley Butler to overthrow FDR. It was called the Business Plot. Google it. But yes, there was a coup attempt in the early 30s. Not a lot came of it because, as politicians are wont to do, they just basically quashed it. There was an investigation and, there wasn't enough proof to consider besmirching the fine, upstanding gentlemen's names who were involved with the plot to remove a duly elected president of the United States from office. Well, hey, basically, what goes around comes back around, because we got Stephen Miller, we got Kristi Noem, avowed Nazis. You know, the Bushes were fucking Nazis. H.W.'s dad was busted with trading for the Enemies Act. He's also responsible for getting Nixon into politics and a lot of other shady shit. Anyway, so that's the history, and we're just in another period. We can see the Overton window's been way over the right, and it gets pushed a little left, and gets pushed back right, pushed a little further left, pushed back right, a little further left, and pushed back right. So now, I believe it is near its right word, swing. They talk about a window. The window is actually more like a pendulum. But anyway, things are going to swing our way. But we need to make sure that we are ready for the opportunity. We need a cadre of politicians who are committed to being untouchable. I don't care what party they campaign for. I care about their commitment to being untouchable, their commitment to pursuing justice, their commitment to the U.S. Constitution, their commitment to their oath of office, and their commitment to a moral standard that is unimpeachable. This is the America I demand. This is the America we can make. So, let's get to it. This has been the Trailer Trash Update. I'm Hoot. Let me know. Nobody watches these anyway. Let me know what you think. Let me know why you're bored. Let me know that I'm nuts. Maybe I am. You may be crazy, but it just may be a lunatic you're looking for. Turn out the light.